Welcome to Shadow of Truth, and today is Tuesday, October the 4th, 2016, and your hosts are Dave Kranzler from InvestmentResearchDynamics.com and Rory Hall from The Daily Coin, and this is our Tuesday market update, and we certainly appreciate everybody being here.
I was kind of thinking first I wanted to talk about this gold slam that we're having today.
Yeah, they're kind of giving it the old monkey hammer this morning.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, and I'm actually in the middle of writing a blog post about it. They didn't slam gold until the COMEX opened. And what I think is going on here is that I honestly think that what we're about ready to go into, I think we're staring into an abyss that looks like the 2008 abyss, only it's wider and deeper and darker.
I would agree with that. I mean, there's plenty of people that out there saying the same thing.
Right. Well, I don't care what other people say, but I know what I'm seeing. I know what I'm observing. And I'm telling you, man, I mean, I think I've dug into Deutsche Bank as much as you can dig into Deutsche Bank with the public information that's available. And there's something really, really, really wrong with Deutsche Bank. And they know it. And it's just like it was back in 2008. Gold peaked at 1,020 in March. And I remember because I was in Crested Butte and I was trading and getting ready to launch our hedge fund in 2008, and gold peaked out at 1,020, and then they just started bombarding it, and it was literally right around the time that Bear started collapsing. And you would think that an event like Bear Stearns collapsing would cause gold to go through the roof. Well, no, because they want to artificially prop up that canary, even though it's dead. You know, they're going to make it look alive, and they make it look alive by smashing gold. And then they did the same thing all summer before Lehman collapsed and before we had that so-called great financial crisis, which was really a de facto banking system collapse in this country. And they should have just let the darn thing collapse and let the market sort it out. But no, there was too much money at stake. Henry Paulson still had $250 million worth of warrants in Goldman Sachs. If everyone recalls, when he one of the reasons he took that Treasury Secretary job is it allowed him to sell $500 million worth of Goldman Sachs stock, and it would have been mostly capital gains. So we would have had a huge tax bill. But by taking that job, he got exempted from having to pay taxes on it. So that job alone was worth $250 million to him. But, and this is not really well known out there, he still had $250 million worth of warrants. And there was an article, I don't remember what the dude's name was. It was that kid that used to be on CNBC, and then he started writing for the New York Times or the Wall Street. I forget. He wrote a book, but he said that people who were in a meeting with him when it was revealed that Goldman Sachs was going to collapse with its connection to AIG and all the credit default swaps that it had with AIG. Literally, he walked out of the room and went into the bathroom and threw up. He was so mortified at the thought of losing $250 million. And that's when they came up with that scare story, and they went around to Congress and said, oh boy, the whole world's going to collapse if we don't print money and take taxpayer money and give it to the banks. Believe us, this is better. The taxpayers will be better off for this. And that was their punch. Yep. And Congress, lapped it up, of course, because, they knew that if the Wall Street banks collapsed, so did their money tree.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, this is, and they use this scare tactic all along. Like, look at the Brexit thing. Oh, global economic collapse if Brexit happens. Well, guess what? Reports out of the Eastern Hemisphere to some of those Asian countries are actually doing okay right now. I mean, they're not in great shape, but they're doing better than we are.
Much better.
Yeah. So this smells just like 2008.
And you said that a minute ago that you weren't sure what it is, and I still go back to Deutsche Bank in Austria last year.
And that maybe that triggered it, Roy, but it's way beyond that.
I understand that, but
yeah.
I mean, but that's I've said since that happened that was the trigger point,
And
and
it very well could have been, for sure. Absolutely.
I mean they had
Um, but
because
I'm telling you, I got an email yesterday from one of my mining stock journal subscribers, and he's got a good friend who's been in the financial industry for over 40 years. And the guy was in Europe last week on a business trip in Brussels, and he was flying back to the United States, and he's got the guy said he has zillions of Delta Sky miles, so he flies first class. And this is what he said as he flew home this past Saturday. So this would have been 4 days ago. He noticed there were a bunch of people in his section, and they were traveling as a group. Based on conversations he could overhear, it seemed that they were heading to the U.S. for some sort of an emergency meeting about Deutsche Bank. One woman connected to the group approached my friend under the mistaken impression that he was part of the group. She started to thank him for being able to get free on such short notice to attend the meeting. She didn't say where the meeting was going to be held, but she did briefly mention the name of the group, which she mistakenly thought my friend was traveling with. Unfortunately, he can't recall the name, but it sounded like it had something to do with the EU. My friend let her rattle on for about 45 seconds before he politely informed her that he was not part of the group. The lady turned beet red and clammed up immediately. My friend is a real straight shooter, so if he says that this happened, it happened. So some sort of group of officials was flying from Brussels to the United States, and it was it sounded like sort of a ad hoc emergency meeting that was convened, and it had to do with Deutsche Bank.
that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of meetings going on both sides of the Atlantic, and behind closed doors that are unannounced, and trying to figure out how to keep this beast alive, or not alive, but at least propped up. Weekend at Bernie's is Deutsche Bank. Period. I mean, I mean, everything that we've been documenting over the past couple of weeks, Dave, I mean, has pointed to that. The
Yep.
writings that you've done, which have been excellent, and the podcasts that we've been conducting. I mean, it's a disaster. And once again, I keep going back to Heta Bank. That was the trigger. I said it back then. I'll say it till this whole thing blows up. They were the start, and that's what's been burning underneath the surface for the past year and a half, or whatever, however long it's been, and no one has been able to control it. And this is the whole problem with the derivatives market. You don't have a bank in Austria to go belly up, and then 2 weeks later, where was the bank that it blew up at? In Germany. It blew up. Now we have two banks that have gone, and no one knows the daisy chain that those set off. Were they able to stop them at these centralized clearinghouses? Doesn't sound like it. Sounds like that the fire has been burning under the surface ever since, and now it's gotten to the point to where Deutsche Bank can't control it, Fed can't control it, ECB, Bank of England, none of them. It's about to get away from them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And it definitely has something to do with Deutsche Bank. Whether or not they'll be able to fix it, I don't know. I'm telling people on any time Deutsche Bank trades up, buy puts on it, short it. This thing's going below 10 before maybe probably even below 5 before the German government's forced to bail it out. Or a consortium of the German government, the Bundesbank, the ECB, Bank of England, and the Fed would be my guess. So gold was slammed from top to bottom this morning about $20. And it actually, as usual, it started to trade up last night during Asian hours, and then it kind of faded a little bit and flatlined. And it basically flatlined until the COMEX opened. And I'm staring here at the graph of December gold, and in the first 4 minutes of trading, 11,901 COMEX December COMEX gold futures were dumped on the COMEX. Okay, so that's the equivalent of 1.1 million ounces of gold in 4 minutes.
In 4 minutes.
Paper gold in 4 minutes. So the fact that they are, I mean, yeah, sure, gold had a nice run from mid-December to late July. It had a really nice run, and percentage-wise, trading-wise, hot money-wise, it was due for some sort of corrective pullback. But in the last 3 or 4 weeks, they've really intensified the manipulation. Gold almost always gets hit as soon as the COMEX opens, and some days it's brutal, it's extreme. Today's an extreme one. I mean, you're talking about 1.1 million ounces of paper gold, and so that right there tells us they're afraid of something, and they don't want gold to be the bearer of bad news.
And that's its job.
That's right.
That's what gold does. It says, "Hey, we're having a problem over here," and if the problem is not seen, then it doesn't exist.
That's right. And so, what I would like to say, I doubt anyone listening to this has any kind of accounts at Deutsche Bank. But if you do have accounts at Deutsche Bank, close them and get your money out of there. I mean, otherwise you're just making a free donation to the black hole called Deutsche Bank, because at some point you're never going to get your money back.
See, and I just spoke with Willem Middelkoop yesterday.
Yes, I listened to that. It was an excellent interview.
And he seems to think that they're not going to, they being the globalists at the IMF and the BIS and the World Bank, that they're not going to do anything major, that we're not going to see any major changes with the new SDR. Could be 5, 10, 15 years. Disagree with that. But he said that unless there is some type of major crisis, don't look for anything to change. And it's funny that the people that have been coming out and saying, or have been speaking about the new MSDR and the yuan going into the SDR basket of currencies, they've all said the exact same thing, or very close to the exact same thing. Nothing will change unless there's a major crisis. Otherwise, it's going to take a long, long time for it to change. So, are we seeing that major crisis unfold right now? Why would there be these, years timeline given when anybody, the people that are listening to this, you, Dave, I know, we all know that this whole system has been fractured for quite some time. We all know that the cycle has been 7 or 8 years that the bubbles have lasted, and that's going all the way back to 1980. We've got a 35-year, 36-year cycle that we can look at and go, yeah, this is a pattern. So I don't see how it can last another 5 years or another 10 years or another 15 years. I really don't. Even let's say that Deutsche Bank is papered over and the Fed and all the other central banks around the world all just start printing money like there's no tomorrow. They print 10 trillion, 15 trillion, 100 trillion, whatever it takes. Are the people going to accept that? I don't think that the German people would accept that. I don't think the Europeans would accept that. The American people, well, they don't really care. Hey, it's all good. Football game's on. Dancing with the Stars is on. I'm good to go. They just printed $100 trillion. Cool that. So, but the Europeans and in particular the Germans, they're a little more sensitive to these kinds of issues. So, are they going to stand for it? Are they going to stand idly by? I don't know. Hard to say. I mean, do you think that I'm off base here with that, or?
I think the 99 percenters are going to whine a lot. Maybe they feel like if they vote for Trump, they're going to be doing something about it. That's not going to do anything about it. I think that in general, I think people are just going to roll over and just do as they're told. I mean, they've been, parallel to what's going on in the financial system, and all the fraud and corruption in the political system has been this slow totalitarian creep for the U.S. government. And everything that they do is not everything, but a lot of things that they do are designed to get used to people being under control and following orders.
Yes.
The security check at the airports is a perfect example of that.
Security check at the football games. Are you kidding?
Well,
Forget the airport.
Right. Well, it's security check everywhere. And
Everywhere.
I remember about a year ago, articles came out and they're thinking of starting to put TSA security checks in train stations and bus stations. And
Now they're rolling that out.
Yeah, it's absurd. Well, it serves two purposes. It lets the government employ people who otherwise are unemployable in the private sector, because those TSA people are complete idiots. And it allows them to implement a system by which it forces people to follow orders, and it's a shock and awe thing, and people think they feel safe, oh great, man, there's not gonna be anything on this plane because we have to go through these X-ray machines. Well, people, they test it out all the time, and people get stuff through the TSA security checks.
They have on these tests that they conduct, they consistently fail to the tune of 70+% of the time. If it's not a lot higher than that, I mean, it is a total failure, the whole thing.
Right. Well, then that doesn't matter, because it's not intended to be, true implementation of security.
Right.
I mean, it's intended to be just, getting the proletariats, getting the plebes used to following orders, and it's part of this implementation of totalitarian control by the government.
Yep.
And that's what the move to a cashless society is. That's what Obamacare is all about, which it's collapsing, and now they'll put in just a standardized one-payer government overriding government system. Just to circle back to the hit that was put on the COMEX today, I stretched out the look at it to the first 30 minutes. In the first 30 minutes, over 32,000 contracts were dumped on the COMEX. That's 3.2 million ounces of paper gold. Okay. The COMEX is reporting that it has 2.5 million ounces of gold that's available for delivery in its registered accounts in the vaults and the COMEX. So what happened here in the first 30 minutes is that more paper gold was dumped on the COMEX than is available to be delivered. Now, if that's not an artificial market, I don't know what is. And it was just absolutely designed to bash down the price of gold, because if they don't try to control the price of gold here, the price of gold would shoot up towards 2,000, and people would know that everything that's being said about Deutsche Bank is true.
You think it would go that high that quick?
Well, I don't know if it wouldn't happen overnight, but it would start heading up towards 2,000. If they hadn't, started putting in their price control measures on gold in August, I think we'd be close to 1,500 by now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we would be well north of 14, though.
Here's the other thing that's interesting. The S&P's been bouncing around all morning since it opened, up, down, up, down, up, down. I mean, it was up about 2 points, and I looked away for about 15 minutes to try and fix this stupid Skype problem, and all of a sudden it was down 8. But the funny thing is that I pulled up Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, and Netflix, and all of those stocks were green except for Facebook. Facebook, of those stocks, and those are the stocks that they use to try and prop up the S&P. And Facebook's only down a little bit, but Amazon actually went red now because the S&P's red. But if you look at Google's up over 0.5%, and Apple is up 0.7%. So it's up close to 1%. So, I mean, they are working overtime to try and keep a floor under the S&P.
I
You
mean,
know?
and the thing about Apple is that they are literally having to give away the new iPhone 7 or whatever it is, the latest and greatest. They're
That's
giving
right.
it
There's not
away.
money to afford it.
You can't give away product too long before it starts affecting everything.
That's right.
And
I just want to just tell people out here, don't be afraid by this what's going on in the precious metals, because it's going to bounce here soon. Absent the intervention, the Huey would have turned around when it went below the 50 and started to go back up, because it's been bouncing off the 50-day moving average since mid-January. But I have always said there's a possibility that we could see a 200-day moving average correction. And the 200-day moving average on the Huey is at 202, and the Huey's down 17 points today to 208. So it's getting close to that 200-day moving average. But I do remember, and this was especially true from like 2001 to 2008, you'd get an occasional, after a big run up in the metals and the miners, you'd get an occasional 200-day moving average correction, and that's probably what we're looking at here. So um, I actually used this morning, and I saw, gold was down about, I don't know, about $26 from where it closed yesterday, and I actually moved a fair amount of money into Bitgold, and I'll do the same thing tomorrow if it's lower tomorrow. So this is the area, and this is the type of market action where you want to be buying.
yep,
You don't want to chase this stuff as it's going higher. You want to accumulate it when they're artificially manipulating it, because they're not going to be able to artificially manipulate it forever.
yeah, that's what I was going to say, Dave. Today is a great day to acquire gold and silver because silver's getting monkey hammered. Also, I mean, it's you know like Dave said, don't be afraid. Today is a good day. I like days like today because I can call my local coin dealer and say, "Hey, what you got? What's on sale today?"
Well, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about, Rory?
No, I'm good. Good to go. I mean, I think that you've ranted enough for one day. Maybe I'll have something to rant about come Thursday.
Yeah, well, maybe my Skype interface with my Windows 10 upgrade will be working on Thursday.
That'd be good.
I know, it'd be great, wouldn't it?
Be
Then
different.
I wouldn't have to go next door and steal the little kid's laptop and use his Skype.
Oh, well, everybody that's acquiring, today's a good day to go acquire. So get out there and get busy. Get after
Oh,
it.
one more point I wanted to bring up. This type of hit, India has started importing kilo bars as it is, because the price of gold's gotten low enough so that the price of gold that's being paid in India is higher than, it exceeds the inclusion of um, the import duty fee. And typically, when you get big hits in the market like this, all of a sudden, India, I wouldn't be surprised, and I'll report on Thursday if you remind me, because we'll know tomorrow, or we'll definitely know Thursday morning if India started buying again. But I almost guarantee you, India is going to be buying a lot of gold today. These are the types of days that the Indians love.
Well, I would imagine that India and China and Russia are all in there
Well, China's
scooping it up.
closed this week. They've got some sort of holiday observance.
They still have agents that are out there.
That's true. That's true. That's a good
I
point.
mean,
Yep.
just because they're closed at home doesn't mean that they don't have people out on the street that say today's a good day to acquire gold. And
Yes, that's true. They do have reps in London, and you're right, that buy on behalf of the Chinese.
and Russia is the same thing. Russia's not closed. They're buying.
They're definitely buying.
They are definitely buying. They're on target to. There was an article came out yesterday or today. No, it was a few days ago that said that Russia is on target to hit another 200 tons of official gold going into the central bank this year, which is that's a significant amount of gold that we know about.
That tells you the future of the SDR right there, between what Russia and China are doing with gold.
That's exactly right.
We're not. I hate to disagree with Willem because he's a super bright guy, and I respect his work, and I've been reading him for over a decade. But this isn't going to last another 15 or 20 years. This SDR is a brief intermediate step for China to start, throwing around some of its weight.
I agree with that. I mean, and I asked him about the veto power that China, Russia, and the other BRICS nations have, because they collectively they have the enough weight to override what the United States wants, and that's been made very clear. And I've got an interview with Dr. Warren Coates next week, who is one of the chief architects of the SDR, and that's one of the questions that I'm going to be asking him as well, and to get his take on what it means. Because if Russia and China and the BRICS nations step up and say, we want gold added to the SDR basket of currencies, and the United States says absolutely not, where do they stand? Who's going to win that argument? Because the United States has all of its allies that are going to say no, but now that China has been added and their voices, they have an actual voice at the table, that changes it completely. So we'll see. It'll be
Forward to
interesting
that
to hear what
interview.
he says.
Look forward to that interview.
Yeah, it'll be good. Well, all right, Dave. Well, I think we've given him enough for the next 48 hours until we're back at it again.
Sounds good to me. I'll catch you on Thursday.
All right, buddy. Have a good afternoon.
You too.